Well, my dear Boolas and Beras, it is Monday morning, and it is I, Krown. Let's look at some fucking charts today. There is plenty to talk about on traditional markets, gold, even Link Marines rejoice and assemble, I suppose. I don't know, what the fuck do they say? Anyways, plenty to talk about today, and I do want to start off with the Krown Chain application, which can be found at app.krownchain.net. It is 100% free, so take advantage of it. Anyways, open interest still at the $2 billion marker. Don't really have too much to make off of that until we still see a break of the high-term time frame range. Wow, it's crazy. It's almost as if I've said the same thing for the last almost 3 fucking months, but it is true. Still need to see a break above 9,900 or a break below about 8,900. That lower bound has changed over time as Bitcoin has, it's kind of proven itself with those higher lows, which we'll be taking a look at today. But I want to have a big focus on actually a couple altcoins and traditional markets as well, because I do believe that they're the more obvious charts. And there's, of course, a few interesting things to be aware of on Bitcoin as well. But until that criteria is met, I don't really see any real opportunity for a long-term trade. Doesn't mean that you can't play the ranges. Doesn't mean that you can't make a shit ton of money, benefiting from the lack of volatility with options. But for the most part, I think that that's pretty uninteresting to most people. So with regards to that, we do see that Bitcoin dominance going down a little bit again, almost another 0.25%, which is significant. And we will be taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, because I will certainly remember today, at least I hope I will. And in the fear and greed index, taking up a couple points as well, 2 of 43, still oscillating in the 40s, which is very interesting, because that is the one thing, or not the one thing, but that has been one of the more consistent things over the past few months since Bitcoin put in its lows in 4,400 in March, that Bitcoin was essentially operating in a fearful zone while still rallying more than 2x off the lows from 4,400 to where we are right now in the low 9,000s. So with regards to that, I should also mention that I've forgotten the last couple of days two or 3 days to mention this, but the summer sale is still going. It will be going through Friday. We actually changed it a little bit, shortened it as there's no fucking need. At the end of the day, you either know what you want to do or don't know what you want to do, and so I'll briefly explain it here. But again, if you want the full explanation and kind of like more of an in-depth dive, or if you just want more information in general, watch the videos here, as they're going to go into detail there. But what I would always say with these programs is that make sure that you have enough time to actually invest in them. That's a really good way to not get the full value out of them if you don't have, at least a few hours a day to put into it. I mean, I don't think that it's going to be really all that worth it, because these programs, the TA program and the options program respectively, are 35-hour plus long programs, and you're probably going to want to watch them multiple times, because it's just, if you just blaze through it the first fucking time, then I don't think that's going to help. So realistically, have to have the time. And then also, I always want to be very direct in saying this as well. Trading is very difficult. Trading is very hard. Trading is also amazing, and I love it. But I feel like it would be disingenuous of me to not say that, it's not something easy. Just like anything that is worth having in life, it's typically not very easy, but at the same point, it can be done. It actually can be done, but it does require a shit ton of effort. So I always want to make sure that people are kind of on the right page or the right side of mindset coming into a program like that, because realistically, if you are like completely green, it's going to take at least 6 months before you even know what the fuck is what, and then probably another year, maybe a year and a half until things really start to click. That's sort of the trajectory that I've seen. Obviously, some people get there faster. Some people start off with a nice base, and that's a different story. If that's you, then fair enough. And if I haven't scared you away just yet, then all good. But I would say that the Neophytes program is the one that's really dedicated for the complete beginner. It's a lot less intensive, and probably a good place to start for people who are actually interested in such things. It will go over all of the basics on how to create a trading plan and whatnot, but I wanted to make a program that was essentially not, super involved, because, well, not everyone wants to do that, and fair enough. And of course, if you do get that program, then you get 20% off of the other programs as well. So it would work out to the same price anyway. So there's no harm if you're unsure, but you're interested to go into this one in comparison to the other ones. Of course, for the subscriptions, we do have the Jewel on a 3-month package sale as well for 20% off. And of course, with the Jewel, same thing. Watch the video that accompanies it. It's a great tool. It's one of my favorite tools. It's my secret weapon in most cases. However, if you don't already know risk management, if this is to say that if you're not already profitable, it's not going to be a magic pill. There's no such thing as a magic pill in this game. And then, of course, the partner programs as well. Morenfall has created his own PineScript Mastery, which will teach you how to make your indicators or whatever indicators that you want in PineScript for TradingView. Okay, cool. All right, chill. Awesome. Great. Feel like a fucking moron right now. Oh man, I had a very bizarre night of sleep last night. Jesus, man, I can already see that my words are failing. So let's get into the charts right now and waste no more time. Alrighty, cool. Starting off with the Link. The Link Marines Assemble. It's time, baby. It is time. As Link did hit last week, or I don't exactly know when this happened. I guess it was last week. No. It was yesterday. It was last week. We hit this target right here in the blue box yesterday, closes above with Valiant colors. I don't have any real targets to be made off this anymore. This was my last one that I realistically had in there at around 70,000 Satoshis or 69,000 Satoshis. Great number. But overall, the weekly is very strong. This is still one of the best charts in crypto. I feel silly because we were looking at this thing back in 2018 and I would always sing its praises. I would be like, yeah, Link still looks good. Link's like the only healthy looking chart. And I've never bought any, but that's just it's just not my game. So shout out to all the people who trade this or I guess just hodl it because you've been making shit tons of money, and fair enough. Good charts get rewarded, especially in a market like this when traditional markets are going straight to the fucking moon. Feels like 2000 .com bubble essentially, if you go back and look there, and Link kind of following the same, which is a good signal. It says that it is relatively strong compared to the rest of the crypto market. And I'd be looking for new all-time highs going on over here. I see no reason to be even looking for, a long-form consolidation or breakdown as long as it's above that prior breakout point now, which is 69,000 Satoshis. So overall good. Maybe in the short-term timeframes, we're setting up for a pullback. Let's see. Bearish divergence does look like it might be in order on the 4-hour, but needs to put in a local high here first. And if it does, I'd be looking for a move back down to 75,000 Satoshis, but I'd be looking for it to be picked up. This is a very strong chart, and what really helps kind of bring this one full circle is when we go look at NASDAQ, which has almost hit our $11,000 target as well. I mean, this is kind of crazy shit. We were calling this back in early May. And I'm gonna sound like I'm being a little bit arrogant here, and I do apologize if it comes off like that, but that's not my intention. But I just want to kind of call out something that I think is rather important, because this is something that you don't see all that often happening in traditional markets, and you probably saw a lot of people, maybe even you yourself was one of these people who kind of got caught up in the bullshit of it all. And it's this: we were calling lows on this as soon as NASDAQ put in this higher low right here at 7,400. This was during the whole coronavirus thing when it was like first getting going and everything, and everyone was calling for not new all-time lows, but everyone was saying this is a Great Depression. We're never going higher, bro. This thing's going to the fucking ground, and it's like everyone's opinion was like, how far down is it going to go? Is it going to go to fucking 0? Is it going to go to 10? Is it going to go to 1,000? Whatever. It's all bullshit. And usually when you do see hysteria like that, that is when major lows get put in. And so, ever since then, it's just been going level by level. It's that fucking simple. And I really don't mean to make like a mockery of it, but it's a very deductive way of trading. And when you do get these runaway breakouts like this, that is the best way that I found to really handle it, because it's been keeping you safe the whole way through, and charts have been, relatively easy, as far as this goes. I mean, you don't need to be a fucking genius to be, or what's the saying? Don't confuse brains with the bull market. Yes, this is a fucking bull market right here, obviously. And we did hit our targets yesterday at the 10,750-ish level. Friday even closed above. That initiated that next sort of extension to the 11,000 target, which is also the 1.414 Fibonacci extension, also in comparison to the last target, which was the 1.272 extension. So I do like the confluence there. I probably would be looking for a short-term or medium-term pullback from this region, but overall, does that make me bearish on this? No, I don't really see any reason to be bearish on this, even from like a short-term time frame perspective, as long long as it's above about 10,600 or 10,700 even. And from a medium term time frame perspective, probably 10,200. I'd be looking for 10,000 to be a nice psychological support, and you can see a lovely consolidation at this level. That ascending triangle that I put in right here is very constructive over a long period of time. Looking at the daily momentum oscillators, we do see that daily RSI is looking very good here. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be calling this bearish divergence. Yes, okay, call everything fucking bearish divergence. That's continuation play. It's not, and what you'll likely find is that if you do look at that as bearish divergence without confirming a local high here, then you're going to call every piece of continuation divergence. And realistically, while I might not get the whole move while waiting for a confirmed local high, I'd be more than happy to wait for one on this one right here, because right now it looks like, you know, perhaps it comes back down in stabs like 10,750, but I'd ultimately be looking higher. Daily Stokes very strong here. Yes, it is kind of in an area that it does like to turn down in, but overall I'd be looking for that turn down to to come back down to like maybe the edge of the bullish control zone, and provide the next opportunity. It's RSI right now that you really want to be keeping an eye on, because that is the one that will get the trend a little bit better for the long term, especially on a daily for traditional markets, and even on a weekly, more accurately said. And the weekly looks fucking phenomenal here. So, you know, could things come back down to like 10,400, 10,500? Yeah, but that'd be an opportunity in my opinion. Don't really see any real reason to be skeptical about this right now. I'd be looking for this contraction phase to be mostly just straight up, maybe not straight up, but mostly upwards price action. And that's typically what you do see in traditional markets when volatility contracts, usually coming in the guise of upwards markets. And it makes sense likely intuitively too, if you really think about it. The reason why I say that is because, you know, what is low volatility essentially implied? It implies that things are, you know, rather quiet. You know, there's no emotions, there's no like hysteria, there's no craziness. I mean, yes, this is a little bit hysteria, yes, of course. I mean, it's just been straight up. But my point is that when does that sort of emotional state take over? Well, when things are generally just grinding their way up, and you kind of get that false sense of security. And then when volatility spikes up to the fucking moon, what does it essentially imply? It implies that price action is moving around very erratically. What happened? Like what's happening when price action is moving around erratically? Well, usually things are coming down, people get emotional, and they do emotional things. Also happens at the top of a blow off top, which we probably do see at some point in this market as well. But I think that has got some more to go. And if we go look at E-mini futures for SPY, I do believe that we did hit our target at almost 320. Oh, very, 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 very close there. Do think that it will be taking this area out probably sometime this week. This is very constructive here as well. Higher lows the whole way through. Golden cross right here. Test 1, test 2, boom, up. All divergence between all major moving averages as the lower periods diverge from the higher periods. And in SPY, we're sway upwards and onwards. Daily RSI is very healthy here. Daily Stokes looks like what you'd expect during a strong trend, and we do have, I mean, you know, is this a formation here? I don't even know if this one has a name, but it is a reaccumulation, and I think that that's quite obvious, and that is the main call on this, as long as it's above about 311, 311-ish region, wherever the 21 is, and that's essentially right here, also synonymous with the last sort of liquid zone that it broke above, which I actually really do like as a nice pivot point. So, you know, do I think that it takes a stab at this local high right here? Yes, 322, 323, and if and when it does break out, which likely does, especially looking at NAS futures strength, I'd be looking for the next leg up to about 335, 336 region, and then if this thing starts to make new all-time highs, that's when the party really gets started as far as the general market goes. NASDAQ obviously more focused on techs. E-mini futures for SPY obviously more focused, well, just on the greater sphere, I suppose. Now here's the thing: there was a concept that I really wanted to reference yesterday in relationship to wait, do I really want to get into this today? No, I don't think I want to get into this today. It's gonna be too fucking long, and sorry. Let's go look at, before we look at Bitcoin, I do want to look at Bitcoin dominance, because I have a feeling that altcoin charts are a lot more interesting right now. And what do you know, absolutely fucking shattering down. Yes, we are resting once again on the same horizontal that has held up the last one or two bounces. But, and while this thing probably does bounce back up to like a 64.5%, the breakdown looks real here. And that would be very good, likely for altcoins versus Bitcoin pairings. So if that, if this does follow through, which it's looking likely. I mean, this is very sloppy right here. Then I would be looking for a stab back down to about 62 to 61.5%, maybe that's 62.5% to 61.5%. No, it's yes. Okay. Yeah. So 1% range right there. I'll put a nice little blue box in there, and I probably would be looking for a potential bouncy bounce in there. So I'll probably have a pullback or whatever it ends up being within that region. Now that would still hold the greater formation as a descending brawny wedge, which is overall bullish. So long term, I think alts, on the whole, for the most part, their days are kind of numbered, but there will be a few big winners here and there. I'm sure of it, or I shouldn't say that I'm sure of it, but very, very likely. Of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and that would be never anything that I'd do. Ethereum versus Bitcoin right here. Really like this chart as well. I've been saying up to 0.028 for a while now. It's been slowly making its way up, and I do think that now that I actually look at it, we can make a measure move on this. Probably going to be even a little bit higher than that, I would imagine. Yep, up to the 200x Benjamin average, which I really do like for Confluence. Also, if we look at this from a historical horizontal area, I'd be looking at this area right here. Beautiful. The Confluence within this one, and then also the 200 simple a little bit higher than that, although not exactly perfect, but technically speaking, 0.0312 looking like. Looks very good here as well, very constructive. So it is interesting to see that Buteral is bullish versus the Bitcoin pairing. Usually we don't see everything rally together in the crypto sphere when you're looking at the ratios, but could it be that we have one of those segments? Yeah, it does happen. It's just it doesn't happen all that often. Okay, cool. And let's look at one more altcoin before we move on. Let's look at Cardano. Actually, I really like this one because I think it accurately represents like the middle of the pack altcoins, like the not obviously good ones and not obviously bad ones, just kind of like par for the course, I suppose, and pretty damn good here. We did say that if it closed above, last week it closed above 1050, I'd be looking for a move all the way up to about 1350. I think that was maybe a little bit too conservative on my own behalf, but fair enough. I don't really see anything else that's obvious here except for the fact that, last major high on a weekly was 1735. So if we do get a weekly close above that, that's when really, the tide has shifted for the macro, and we can target moves up to 2300, 3000, maybe even 4000, but overall it's just overall bullish. Now that's not to say that the US dollar pairing is destined to be bullish as well. I think that depends a lot more on what Bitcoin does here, and I'm curious what actually Ripple is doing as well. While all of the stronger ones are kind of rallying, something like this is still within the context of a weekly down. I mean, this is just pathetic, but is it going to get a try up to 2300 satoshis? Yeah, probably does. Most things probably going to be benefiting from Bitcoin being mostly sideways. Speaking of Bitcoin, let's go take our first fresh look at it today. We are 17 minutes into this video, haven't even looked at Bitcoin. Daily is looking good. It did close above the blue box territory that we have on GDAX right here last night, Sunday, and I do believe that it's likely getting ready for another move back up to 9450-ish region. What's interesting about that region, if we go to our other chart that I think gets the lower term time frames a little bit better right here, is that if Bitcoin can close a 4-hour dildo above 9450, or just take out this last prior high that we see on 8th of July, I would be looking for extension to, at the very least, I shouldn't say at the very least, but very likely between about 9650 to 9700 right here, and then realistically have to be looking at the higher term time frames to pull in the full picture, of which we do see that the 3-day does still have hidden bullish divergence potential in play between this point 9th of May, this point 24th of May, and this point more recently in end of June, and that would elongate the target a little bit more towards about 9900, which is very interesting because that is the top side of the long-term range. And if that's the top side of the long-term range, then that means that if Bitcoin can actually break above there, that being 9900 for the more aggressive traders, 10,000 for the more conservative traders, then that's when I can actually really start to target moves to 10,500, 11,000, 11,500, and then we'll get to that one if it calls for it. But for right now, things are looking like they're reaccumulating on the 21. on the daily, even though the chart is mostly sideways. I'd say that this is looking better and better. It is very obviously trying to construct a low here on the on CME chart. We do see low, low, low. I mean, all these, sorry, I should be saying low and higher low. This is low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, ever so slightly another higher low right here, potentially on the 4 hour. I would still be defensive against another move back down to test around 90.50 on CMEs, which would likely be around 9,000 on spot price action. But I do think that, you know, this is looking more and more like a like an opportunity for a potential long-term trade, but very likely a medium-term trade. And a very obvious risk management point. You know, it's not to say that, you know, Bitcoin does come back down to like 9,000 or 8,900, which it's looking like I'm going to be wrong about, as I was looking for that move to happen over the weekend. It looks like it's not going to happen here, or at least if it does happen, you know, I'd rather be patient for it. But my point is that, you know, when you look at this right here, it is looking constructive. The more that it goes sideways without breaking down above all these major moving averages, it's hard to look at that as bad, because realistically, Bitcoin's had so many chances to break down here, and I do believe that it probably would have broken down if the world markets weren't so strong right now. But I do believe that Bitcoin's benefiting from that, and putting in time going sideways, likely just going to be ending up going to the path of least resistance, which is to the right, to the side, to the next side. You know, the best call that I've had in the last week is well, probably not going to do all that much. It's probably going to go to the fucking right, and that's the God's honest truth, man. And to be 100% direct, I'm not trading this right now. I have no interest in trading this sort of bullshit right here. I don't want to trade option ranges because well, you could trade option ranges definitely, but because, you know, historical volatility percentile is at, you know, age old lows, like generational lows here, essentially, you know, just shit that we haven't seen in, I don't really think that we've ever seen this in Bitcoin with this low of a read for this long in the single digits. You know, I'd rather not play around with fire. You know, the time to be doing that was back and over here, which is when I was quite active. Over here, no, not for me at least. You know, if you're making money, shout out to you. I mean, that's awesome. I'm sincerely happy for you. It's just, for me, that's not my game, and that's why I really never want this place to turn into like Signal Central or some bullshit like that, like Spoon Feed Central, because everyone has their own different styles. And if you're trying to copy mine and you don't live the exact same lifestyle as me or have the exact same preferences as me, it's probably not the right thing to do. And just like, you know, you might have your own strategy and it might work amazingly for you, but if I were to do it, it doesn't really jive with, you know, with my lifestyle, I suppose, or just any facet that could get in the way of that equation. So, you know, that's always going to be the focus of this place, and why I want to be focusing on trading and technical analysis rather than like becoming, you know, a fan of a coin or like a fan of really anything. It's all a game of statistics, and now I'm just jubbling my words once again because I've had too much coffee this morning. Anyways, go check out the 2-day and the 3-day, of which I think that there's a lot of interesting things here. The 2-day did close a 2-day doodle yesterday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. 2-day Stokes still remain to the north side. They are nice and erect, and they will be remaining erect as long as Bitcoin is above 9,050, which is interesting because, you know, it does still make me think that Bitcoin could very easily have a test back down here to the 55 on the 2-day or the 200 simple, of which I like those for long-term areas again as well, and it naturally lines up with the pivot to the downside at 8,900 for the 2-day 200 simple and 55 by extension. Looking at the 2-day RSI, do we have anything of note here? You know, we have that same sort of hidden bullish divergence there, but you could argue that that's already played out. You know, that was a move from 89 to 95. I mean, that's a 6.69% move, which is significant enough. It's a 3-day that I'll be keeping an eye on right now, and the 3-day is actually suggesting quite a few things. So the 3-day does close tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and if we look at the reverse Stochastic indicator cross, guess what? It is going to cross the upside, rejecting the bearish control zone here and turning back up as Bitcoin holds the 21 exponential moving average the whole way through for like the last 2 fucking weeks of the range of piss and shit. And that would very likely not just come along the side of Stokes turning back up, but also that hidden bullish divergence on the 3-day RSI getting confirmed as well. And then realistically, you know, yes, short term 9,700, but I'd really be looking towards 99, maybe even 10,000. And you know, at that point, it's, you know, it's what's more likely to happen if Bitcoin's around 9,900? Is it more likely to break out to the upside or the downside? You already know. You already know. Rhetorical question. And same thing here on historical volatility percentile. It is absolutely crushed to oblivion. And we do obviously have that trend line there. Which very likely does call the next like local top or local bottom if this does break to the downside. I mean, like I don't want to rule out that possibility just yet. But I keep an eye on this because it very likely does get things right, as it's been pretty damn dependable in the history of Bitcoin. Anyways, looking at the weekly as well, I think that there's a couple things to say here. So weekly is going to give you the bigger picture naturally. And what do we see here? Weekly Stokes will turn back up to the upside if Bitcoin can close this next weekly total above 98.50. 98.50 obviously would be closing on a higher high above this last sort of slew of highs right here, and likely constitute and come along the side of a breakout to the upside above that 9,900-ish region, initiating a short-term move to about 10.4, 10.5, medium term to 11, and long term to 11.5, and potential to change around the macro above 11.5, which is actually very interesting. But as it stands right now, momentum oscillators for the weekly are actually technically down and below the critical zone, which is problematic. So I don't want to make it sound like it's a done deal here. Bitcoin's just destined to go up. No, while I am painting a little bit more of a bullish picture, I should be very direct in saying this, that I don't think it's out of the cards for Bitcoin I really don't think it's out of the cards for Bitcoin to swipe like 9,000 or 8,900 again. But even then, if it were to break down below those regions, I'd be targeting moves to at the very least 8,100 and probably 7,500. At which point I'd really want to look at the bigger picture once again. But as it stands right here, Bitcoin did close above the 10 simple yesterday night for the weekly close. And again, we have a pretty interesting way to kind of be looking at this from a long-term perspective, not even a long-term perspective, but a weekly perspective right here, as we have a very obvious pivot. If you're bullish, this is very likely what you're looking at, and this is more importantly what you need to see in order for your idea to work out. Again, understanding the risk management part of a trading strategy, this is all that it comes down to. It's not to say that this is destined to work out. It's just, as if you are bullish, you're looking at this as your higher low right here. That would also imply that if Bitcoin does come back down below, especially the low of your higher low, kind of destroying that at 8,900, then you no longer have that in the cards for you. So as long as Bitcoin is above the 29th of June's weekly low, very likely you can play that long term. By the same token, if we do taking out the high of any one of these deals actually doesn't help all that much. But if we go over here to CMEs, we can actually come up with something a little bit more obvious. CME chart not as strong, by the way, did not close above the 10 simple, just saying, and the 10 simple does have a negative slope, just saying, and weekly Stokes are coming down here as well. So this is also why I would be a little bit careful, because it really wouldn't take all that much to test back down to 9,000. But same thing here as well, and I think that the CME chart's a little bit more obvious. We could use the low of the 29th of June and the high of 6th of July, so last week's high, for continuation both to the downside and the upside, very likely. Although at the end of the day, to really constitute a breakdown and target that move towards 8,100 or even 7,500, I need to see a daily total closure below 9,000. No more than that. No less or no more than, I don't know. Whatever. As long as it's closing above there, I'm not. I wouldn't be trading for it. But if we do close below 9,000, then yes, I would be targeting a move down towards 8,150 around the 382 fib, which is also a nice historical horizontal trend line. And technically speaking, if we do break below 9,000, but especially 8,900, this will very likely be confirmed as Wyckoff distribution. And if that does get confirmed as Wyckoff distribution, then I'd extend that target down to 7,500, the 0.5 fib, same sort of things there. Now, it should be of note as well that this is so fucking mature that Bitcoin will quite literally be forced to pick a direction if we're looking at this from a volume standpoint. We are certainly way more than 70% full on this one. So statistically speaking, it is bursting with energy, and technically there is an apex on the 22nd of July, which is about a week away from right now. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be forced to choose right here. I mean, it can explode. Like once we got to early July, it's pretty much at the point of explosion at any time. You know, think of it as like fucking Chernobyl, you know, or maybe that's a bad analogy. Well, probably a bad analogy. Anyways, fuck it. Let's go look at the 12-hour, the 12-hour of peace and prosperity. 12-hour Stoch's gonna have a chance to cross the upside here. Will naturally cross the upside with any sort of a 12-hour total closure above 93.30. Keep that area in mind because the next 12-hour closure probably does greatly influence today's price action, and I'd likely be looking for follow through to 94.50 if that were to happen. And you know, realistically, it does look like Bitcoin is kind of setting up here. To the 4-hour 200 simple, I think is being a little bit more obvious right here, governing price action. This white moving average at 92.80, and that is where we just put in our last potential lower high. Although you can see from the reverse Stoch indicator cross that that momentum will remain to the upside on the 4-hour if we can close this next 4-hour build above 92.80, and that would actually effectively put 4-hour Stochs into the bullish control zone and make the 4-hour RSI likely look constructive by putting another low alongside that exponential on it. But again, you know, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. It's more so here saying all you have to do really is just wait for the confirmation on this one or the not confirmation of this one, because if we do close below, then what's likely to happen? That's at the point when I really start to entertain the possibility of another test back down to like 9,000-ish region. And then we'll come back to it if and when that does happen. But for right now, looking at all the lower term timeframes, let's see what momentum is looking like. This is your 4-hour, potentially cross into the downside. Again, the next closure below 92.80 will confirm it to the downside. Let's look at the 3-hour. 3-hour is actually popping back up. So let's see what's maybe hidden in the in these timeframes. The 2-hour also popping back up, does have this competing trend line right here, though rather aggressive too, might I say, guarding the edge of the bullish control zone, which would be significant if it works its way back in there. And you'll probably know by a 2-hour closure before the 4-hour naturally, and the hourly is actually turning down. But what price point would be needed to close above in order to remain it to the upside? 92.70. What about the 2-hour? Needs to close above 9200 to remain momentum to the upside. What about the 3-hour? It needs to close above 9200 for momentum to remain to the upside. So you can see bifurcation here, and this is the situation that I usually speak about when the lower term timeframes don't agree with each other. You can expect there's going to be some floaty and flighty behavior, but keep in mind the areas where they all start to line up, which is the 92.80 area, quite literally where we are right now. Bitcoin can keep on closing above there. Short-term momentum remains the upside, and I'd be looking for 94.50 or whatever we said at the beginning of this video to get tested. If Bitcoin closes below there, especially 9200, that's when I'd really look for the next test down to 9,000 or 8,900. That's sort of the range right now. It's literally like less than $100 range. I don't like trading ranges this small. It's not for me, but hey, for the cavaliers out there, go for it, I suppose. Or I'm not your dad, I'm not here to tell you what to do. Maybe better said that in that tone. Okay, cool. This video is already 31 minutes long. Sorry. Sorry. What else do we want to look at while we're here? We can go look at probabilities. I guess I'll make this video a little bit on the shorter side. Let's go back to this chart maybe. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to use the medium-term time frame range. So I'll be using 94.50 to the upside and to the downside. To the downside, should we use 9,200 to get the short-term move, or should we use 9,000 to get the potentially long-term move? We can use both actually to the downside, but for the upside, I think 94.50 is the most relevant. And we'll use 92.50 9200 was what it was. And this is on a daily total closure. By the way, the rings are pretty much flat here, not really giving us all that much. And what do we see? We do see that the probability of taking out the upside range is 35.31%. And that correlates with the medium-term time frame move. The 9200-ish area getting closed below on a daily total closure is 40.78%, which correlates only with a short-term move down to likely 8,900 or 9,000. Whereas again, the 94.50 move probably back up to like 97-ish, and then very likely it initiates that hidden bullish divergence on the higher term timeframes, and we'll probably see like 9,900 or whatever it ends up being. What's also interesting is if we put this on a 12-hour is 12-hour Bally and Pig's moms turning back up, by the way. What's interesting about this, though, is that the daily and the 12-hour kind of seem like they massively disagree with each other almost always. It makes sense. Obviously, a 12-hour is half of a day. But at the same point in time, the daily is telling you something a lot different. It's telling you that we have hidden bearish divergence here. The 12-hour is saying, nope, we're turning back up, and we actually even have regular bullish divergence here. No, sorry, there's not regular bullish evidence there present. Apologies for that. There's nothing present there. So it's really just the daily to be making anything off of, and the daily's kind of been flip flopping around. So I'm not sure how to interpret that. And I think it's better that I don't really put any words on it, but it was turning down a couple days ago and now seems to be in the process, if the 12 hours anything to go off of turning back up, or at least waning the momentum once again. So, it's kind of hard to make it from that. I really want to like that indicator, but if it flip flops around here a little bit too much, then I don't really. Is there value in it? Yes, of course there's value in it, but I want something that's unique, that's not being shown by the tools that I already use. Okay, have I covered everything that I want to say? Probably, yeah. Well, close enough. This video is already 34 minutes long, probably too long for most people out there. That's all good, man. It's just you, me, and all the other TA nerds right now, and this is exactly where we should be. So yeah, I think I'll start to wrap up this video right now. I think we'll go back to this chart. Yeah, it looks to me like if Bitcoin can maintain these closures above 9280, or if we just want to make it more simple, like 9300 on 4 hour and lower, then very likely we do pop back up and test around 9450, 9500ish region. Any sort of a 4 hour closure above 9450, or even just a wick higher than, I think it's 9500. Yeah, 9500, and I'd extend that target all the way up to 9650 to 9700ish region, and then take a look at the 3-day. Probably extends over time to 9,900, 10,000-ish region, and that potentially sets it up for a big bad breakout to the upside. By the same token, to the downside, very tight margins here, 9,200. If you put a gun to my head and said, Krown, figure it out, I'd say my best, my best fit for that would be 9,200. That would turn the short-term momentum back to the downside and very likely initiate a move back down to 8,900 to 9,000. That does not, however, imply that we will break 8,900 or 9,000, but just a test. And then I'd want to come back and see. Obviously, if we get some higher term timeframes like a 12-hour or daily closing below 9,000 and especially 8,900, then yes, I'd extend targets down to 8,150, 7,500ish region. Then we'll come back to that one. Okay, all right. Ready? Break. No, just kidding. I want to say a massive thank you for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure, and until next time, take care.